Well, I was always slightly shocked when Deputy Commissioner said, "I'm in charge. I'm in charge." So these gentlemen and ladies are really in charge of our safety, and doing an amazing job. We're meeting here today on an incredibly important issue, to address take stock of the steps that are being taken to address extortion, the scourge of extortion that we're seeing in the Lower Mainland, in and around Surrey, but Delta elsewhere. We're seeing in the Peel region, particularly around Toronto, Brampton as well, other parts of the country. A huge amount of resources and effort are now being put to bear on this. I'm confident that it's beginning to have an impact, and it will have an impact. But what we're focused on in this meeting is how well is it working, what's coordinated, what else needs to be done, and how do we work together. And I just want to spend a couple minutes on what the federal government is doing. We have a role, not an exclusive role, obviously, but a complementary role. And the first and foremost thing that we focused on the advice of a number of the organizations around this table and other tables across the country, is to toughen the bail and sentencing laws in this country. In fact, we put forth a number of bills over the course of the last few months in Parliament that is arguably the most aggressive tightening of the criminal code seen in decades. That includes tightening, as I said, bail and sentencing laws under a bill called C-14. It provides steps such as, and this is again on advice that we receive, reverse onus for bail in cases of violent crime, extortion, use of arson, threat of arson, use of firearms. In effect, you have to prove that you should get bail as opposed to a presumption of having bail. It provides for consecutive sentence in a number of these cases as well, so that the penalties are extended. Tougher sentences for home invasions, for use of weapons, for arson, all the things that we're seeing in and around extortion. In fact, there's 80 targeted amendments to the criminal code in Bill C-14 alone. So again, I want to thank the organizations here, the individuals, organizations, police organizations across the country, prosecutors, others who provided that input. We have acted on that. It was a source of some regret, I will say, that we had ultimately to get every premier in the country to back the federal government so that Parliament as a whole would move and unblock this bill. It is now unblocked. It's now moved to the Senate, through Parliament, moved to the Senate, and we hope for swift passage because we need to put these tightenings of laws into place. That's the first point. Secondly, strengthening our immigration laws and our borders laws, basically ending the fraudulent use of asylum seeking by criminals to drag out processes and to avoid justice, in effect. A series of tightening there. Those measures are now in the Senate. Again, we need to see them passed. I want to highlight a very important bill that needs to move, which is Bill C-2, which is another series of border measures. But one of the core things that it includes is something called lawful access. Now, lawful access is through the courts getting a warrant, but being able to access messaging between suspected criminals. And these individuals know from their investigations, from their prosecutions, that what we see in extortion is very often through private messaging services. That's the mechanism to terrorize our population. We need to give the police, the prosecutors, lawful access to those messages so they can prosecute, and that's a job for Parliament.
But what's to stop the police taking advantage of that power and going through anyone they suspect, their device? Because, I mean, just recently we've seen all those police officers that got arrested and charged for being dirty cops. So we already know that it's not impossible for them to take advantage of the power that they have. But the question is, what's to stop them, you know?
And we need to move on that. In addition, we have measures to additional legislation to address victims of violence. That's so-called C12, which is a bill, and make it an explicit crime to recruit youth into extortion. I know, for example, the Surrey Police and others are have education campaigns and other campaigns in order to ensure that the youth don't come in, aren't pulled into these gangs in effect. But we need to toughen it on the legal side. Also, legislation to combat hate in our communities, intimidation, people going to their synagogue, to their mosque, to their church, to their community center, a series of other measures, as well as the exploitation of children online. We've also taken steps as the federal government to list as terrorist organizations groups involved in extortion. The most notorious is the Bishnoi Gang, again on the advice of the police, working with the advice, for example, as well as the BC government, listed the Bishnoi Gang as a terrorist organization. Part of our work, I would say as well, in terms of a series of security agreements that we're striking around the world, is to improve cooperation amongst law enforcement and security organizations. So we get the information from these, if I can put it this way, host governments of these transnational gangs. That's on the legal side, if you will, the federal government taking our role. Also, major steps being taken in terms of resources. A total of $1.7 billion in the last budget across the RCMP and the Canada Border Service Agency. Nina Patel is here from the CBSA, overseeing the work in British Columbia, providing additional resources and additional 1,000 CBSA officers across the country, additional 1,000 RCMP personnel.
Excuse me, sir, how old were you when you made your first million?
What is this for?
We're trying to get advice.
Targeting in here in the Lower Mainland, additional, just in recent weeks, 20 additional RCMP officers, helicopter resources being deployed. We're creating in the process a new financial crimes agency that's also helping to follow the money. And I want to say another word on that. As we are here today, in the Peel region, the Minister of Finance is making a series of announcements to literally follow the money in extortion and use the financial system to complement the efforts, reinforce the efforts of law enforcement so that we can track this down. A series of measures there. There's an agency called FinTrack which exists. It's a bunch of people, very expert people, a bunch of algorithms that with the right authorities can track the behaviors of people who do extortion. Remember, these are often quite modest payments relative to the size of the financial system, but there is a pattern, and we need our financial institutions to recognize the pattern, to follow the money, provide law enforcement and prosecutors with the information. Huge investment there, and a series of measures. I'll just finish by really expressing my gratitude to the people around this table, the people you represent, the hard work that you're doing, the dedication to make our communities safe. I want to compliment as well my fellow members of the caucus here. I want to just underscore, since I came into government, they have raised this issue with me. They have raised this issue with me in terms of the seriousness of the issue, but also in terms of potential solutions, and that is why we have led with a series of tightenings to the criminal code, additional resources in our first budget, working in a series of roundtables and task force.
So, if I'm being honest, I was Team Pierre Polyev, to be quite honest with you guys. However, I do believe Mark Carney's doing an amazing job, and he is the man for the job. You know, just based off of all the trade deals, and now he's tightening up security. You know, it looks like he's cleaning up the mess that Justin Trudeau left behind. However, I don't agree with all of these bills. For example, Bill C2, where they can just go through your phone. Um, I feel like he's trying to usher in the digital era where they can have more control over the population. Uh, Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.